Dungeon Academy. This is a game for families in the sense that it is clearly aimed both at adults and children. It is the day where we are graduating or taking our final exam in the academy that taught us how to be good dungeon looters. We have been trained to run into the dungeon, slay monsters, and possibly grab treasures and loot. That's exactly what heroes do, isn't it? So it is a game for 1 to 6 players. Yes, it is competitive, but it has a solitaire option in which you're just trying to go for better score. It is a roll and write game, a genre that has been very successful in the last couple of years, and it is an interesting one, unusual take on the roll and write, because everybody will be looking at the same elements and everybody will try to identify a pattern that will allow them to score as much as possible. So you have roll and write and also pattern recognition. You take these cards here and you put them in ascending number from top to bottom and a number equal to the number of players. So then you take the dungeon. The dungeon is made of this tray here, this is the tray here, and then we have 16 dice. You start with these 16 dice. The game lasts 4 rounds. In round 2 and in round 4 you replace one of these with a special die. This one in round 2 and this one in round 4, so there is variety there. Then we have tokens here, the double-sided. On one side you have health and on the other side you have mana. They're used both to track how much, well, health and mana you still have, and also how many monsters you have defeated, because every time that you defeat a monster there will be a cost to pay. So the more you paid, the more that indicates that you slain a bunch of monsters. Now we take these dice here, the main dice in the game, and they show you a small red monster, so like a blobby thing, a large red monster, a small blue monster, the ghost, a large blue monster, the Reaper, and then we have a red potion and a blue potion, and this is what all these dice have. You take all of the dice at the beginning of round 1 and you roll them in this tray, and then you move them around to form a grid without looking at it too much. Then you take this, that will become the bottom of the dungeon, and then you flip it this way. Everybody takes a sheet of paper like this one, and everybody also takes a hero. They come from a deck. You have a variety of them, and when you and each hero has different levels of health and mana, and they also have different abilities. Finally, we have loot cards that of course are what sweetens the deal, one of the reasons why we go down the dungeon, not just because we enjoy murdering monsters, we're not maniacs, but also because we want to be rich and powerful, and that's totally understandable. So suppose that I'm playing as the warrior. I take these tokens and I place them there on my card based on the amount that is showed there. And so the warrior starts with 4 health and 3 mana, which also is the maximum amount that she can have. Everybody does that. Everybody has a sheet of paper, a pen possibly. This stack is in the middle of the table. Everybody has their hero set up, and now we are ready to go. We start a timer. There can be a minute for an easy game, 45 seconds for regular, and 30 seconds for hard. Then we reveal the dungeon, and then we have all at the same time. We're going to work on our sheet of paper, trying to identify the best path for us. Basically, you will draw a line in the first grid, and then round 2 the second round, and so on and so forth. Second grid, and so on and so forth for 4 rounds. You will draw a line indicating the directions in which you're running and the turns that you're taking. The rules are that you need to start somewhere from the edge of the dungeon. You can only move orthogonally, not diagonally. And you cannot enter the same space more than once. And then at the end of your run, you will, and you had to enter from an edge, exit from an edge, and at the end of your run, you will draw an arrow there to indicate the direction, which is very important. When you're done, you grab the top card from that stack to indicate the order in which players completed this phase, which will be important later when we assign loot cards. When everybody's done, or when the time runs out, then it's time to see how we did. We take this marker here as a player aid, and basically somebody, when I'm adjudicating my thing, the player next to me will move this marker on the board following the indications that I drew here. When I enter a space with a monster, I lose a number of mana points. The big monster will kill, the big mana monster will take 2. To kill the blobby, I lose 1. To defeat the Reaper, if I end up in that area, I'll have to spend 2 mana, and to defeat the small ghost, 1 mana. I think maybe I messed up earlier when I said 1 health, 2 health, 1 mana, 2 mana. When I end up in a space with a potion, I actually take a heal, and I gain a token of that kind, but not about my maximum amount. Now I move here and I spend 2 mana to defeat the Reaper. I go here and I gain another mana. We're here, I go here, and I defeat the Colossus, and my ability is that once per level I can defeat the Colossus for free, and let's say that I decide to do so. So I take the 2 health tokens that usually you would use to indicate you defeated the Colossus. Then I'm going here, I heal a mana, I go here, I get some health, I go here, I slay that blobby, and I put it here, and I'm out. And then the next player will do the same. Once we all do that, it is time to score. We score a point for each monster that we killed, regardless of size. So 1, 2, 3, 4 points there for monsters that were killed. As you can see, there is a scoring area next to each section. I may have loot cards allow me to score extra points, and I would write those there, but I don't in this example. And then I can write down here the current number of mana points and health points that I have, just so that I don't forget. Then we reset our things, and important, you don't get to heal automatically between rounds. You will start the next round with the health and mana that was left there from the previous round. Now it's time to gain some loot. You draw a number of cards from the loot deck equal to the number of players, and then players will simply select a card going in the order determined by these cards, and those cards will give you different types of advantages. When you use a card, you simply do what it says. Actually, at the end of the turn, we also want to claim one of these trophies here, or quests, I believe they're called. Basically, once in a game, I can write down how many points I scored that turn from red monsters, how many from blue monsters, how many from small monsters, and how many from big monsters. I seem to remember that I had destroyed 3 red monsters, so this round maybe I write it like this. If I had chosen, I seem to remember I only destroyed 1 small monster, so if I had written it here, I would write a 1. Why would I do so? Because maybe later in the game I am stuck in that, because you can use these quests only once per game, and so later in the game you get what you get what's left, and you don't get upset. This is the idea. You continue like this for 4 rounds, and at the end of the 4th run through the dungeon, the player with the most points wins the game. The only other 2 plot twists are the dungeon die, which is added in round 2, and it will replace one of these dice. Has different effects. One is simply closed doors, so if the die is there, well, you cannot move through the closed doors, you have to follow the indicated directions. Bag of gold, slippery banana peel that makes you lose a life. And then at the end, in the last round, we had a die that has a boss monster, and there is an icon reference that tells you what these monsters do. They are more dangerous than regular monsters. It may also be that the boss monster simply shuts down one of the spaces that becomes impossible to move. There may be a treasure. There may be a key, in which case we have to, the rule has that we have to go through that space in order to exit the dungeon. And this is how you play Dungeon Academy. Dungeon Academy, I personally like it. I find it enjoyable. I also play it as a solitaire, and it works that way. You're going against your own score, so maybe it's less exciting than the race against other people, but I still find it entertaining. What I wonder though is who the intended audience for this game is, with the exception maybe of me, because I really like it. On one hand, you look at it and, well, this really seems like a family game that you play with children. And I played it with my two daughters that are 7 and 9. And the 7-year-old literally cried, is not a metaphor, and she literally had a rage quit. I hadn't seen that happen very often. Maybe it's the first time I actually saw it that bad. Just because she was so frustrated that she kept simply blanking out and not being able to do anything within the minute. We had the long thing, within the minute allowed, or making major mistakes and dying like in room 3. The 9-year-old actually really enjoyed the game, but in no small part because the sister was suffering so much. Kids are monsters. That's just the way things are. They really are. But back to us. So the 9-year-old enjoyed the sadistic feeling, but also enjoyed the game in itself. And she wasn't, quote-unquote, playing very well. She kept going for potions when she didn't need them because she was at maximum health and mana. It just seemed to her, the more I get, the better I do. But of course, precisely the fun of the game is balancing the risk that you're taking. Technically, there is no risk because it's all deterministic, how many points you'll spend and how many points you'll get. But as you are going against the timer, then of course, maybe you make a mistake and you know that you may have made a mistake. You're getting as close as possible to all that you can spend, knowing that the possibility of a mistake will cause you not to score. As an adult, that is the fun part. So even for my 9-year-old daughter that could handle the emotional distress, the strategy was hard to implement. And that makes this game different from, say, other family games like King of Tokyo, in which the rules are simple enough for a child to play. And the strategy somehow is also intuitive enough that when she was 6, my daughter, who is now 9, she was beating me at King of Tokyo bona fide. I wasn't helping her. I wasn't letting her win. She could play the game effectively. Dungeon Academy, not that much. Maybe it's just the kids don't do all that well with real-time games, and maybe I should try to play it again with them, give it yet another try without the timer. I wonder if for kids, but then it really becomes trivial. But as for adults, if you're planning to play with adults, then I'm afraid that this is going to be a little too light and basic. I also play a lot with mathematicians, and they don't make the kind of mistakes that I make in this kind of game. So I don't know. I say, why don't you play Dungeon Academy? They say yes. I'm like, okay, you won. Next. Because I don't know that there's going to be any chance for me against their mathematical inclined mind. They're just so precise. So, I don't see that as a game for adults to bring to game night with hobby gamers. There's enough of a game here. There's enough meat here. I don't know if you need to add some extra effects or something like that. It just feels like it could be is mainly a game for children or young gamers, but not too young. I don't know, I guess there is a really sweet narrow window here between 9 and 12 maybe. So I actually enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy seeing my daughter suffer so much, but I actually enjoyed it as a very simple, very light game. But then I play some heavy games, and I seem to have a tolerance for really light games that is higher than most hobby gamers do. And that's the weird thing. I play some of the lightest and some of the pretty heavy games, and I enjoy them both. So I don't know. I personally enjoyed it. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to race against the timer, to try to do your best, to risk and push your luck, to use your effects, to use your abilities, and then you make a mistake, and so be it. I like roll and move games. I just like the process of writing a game, I guess, is very liberating. So I like it, but frankly, I don't know how many other people will, because I can't really figure out what the target audience is. Maybe it's me? Well, thank you. Thank you, Usopoly. That was really nice that you make a game just for me. Because I don't know, again, how many other people will enjoy it. I did, but alas, this is my assessment. It's great if you're me. If you're not me, I don't know, really.